Hello there everyone and welcome back. The expansion is finally here and we have some tweaks in the multiplayer balance finally. A lot of them are as you would expect, a couple of changes are a little bit odd and remains to be seen how they play out. But the main thing I'm really excited for is the potential of some of these new additional reworks they made to upgrades, if not just replace them entirely. There are a few minor notable ones at least, like they changed the scanner and increased sensor range upgrade you have for your light cruisers and escort ships that now include basically a built-in scanner if you ever get within 4,500 unit range of the target. I believe that's the case within scanning range, right? Where is it? Yep, scanning range. So yeah, and that arguably allows the light cruisers to reveal ships that are shrouded if they can get close enough. Although it remains to be seen how practical this is, since you are kind of revealing your escort ship at the same time if you are relying on solid running. And due to scanner pulses, it's very unlikely this will see a lot of use unless you don't want to have a lot of frigates in general. Then maybe you might be able to get value out of this for your light cruisers at least. It's an exciting change, there may be use for it. And they doubled the damage to asteroid belts, so there may be practicality for navigational shields on a very rare occasion. Never mind the fact that if you are in an asteroid belt, it reduces the accuracy of any ships that are shooting at you, so there is even more reason to take advantage of them outside the very brief periods just to conceal your ships, or at least have them hidden so they don't get shot at all. Still, don't think that's enough to warrant the navigational shields, but time will tell. I'm just going to basically go over some of the main things that caught my eye, because hell, with all the major tweaks to ship balances and all that, a lot of which have not been noted, like the Tau Protector fleet with the Protectors, I'm pretty sure they nerfed the price point on their ships for. I have a couple of invalid fleets now here technically. It's a very minor new annoyance, but I have to cut out a frigate here, which I'm pretty certain I was able to allot both these ships before. I honestly can't remember due to how rarely I even utilize this type of fleet, but hell, it seems like their ships were nerfed a tiny bit, at least for the Protectors, but all the railguns were boosted up, and hell, their Manta bombers got a notable boost as well. Whereas all the other bombers do 10 additional damage from 30 to 40 for everything but at Eldari type of fleets, the Manta bombers do 120 damage, so it's basically on par to what all the other bombers got boosted up, even though it does seem like a ridiculous boost, but it's still scary for, like I said, the railguns, the ion cans, all of this have been boosted up, so, and with the reduction of some of the point costs, and at least the merchant fleet, oh, I never really rebuilt that fleet. With the 6 cruisers, this has been toned down to allow for at least getting frigates back in here, so we're probably going to see a resurgence of these heroes. At least that's what they're technically called. It just doesn't want to say it on here for anyone who may be confused what I'm talking about. But before, they were 200 points exactly, which did not allow for any kind of vision. Which, hell, with 6 fighter bays, that's not a big issue, is it now? They can reveal ships relatively well, at the cost of a better screen for your seeker missiles onslaught. But the big thing to note, like I said, the bombers were changed. Hell, even the 4 Stig fleet that I currently have here has been, I guess, been nerfed as well, since I also have an invalid fleet here, since I'm just going to have to remove or at least downgrade these frigates. So a little bit weird there, because again, a lot of these have not been posted. Hell, even these 3 new cruisers or 3 new ships for Chaos I don't even think were in the patch notes as well. But I imagine they're to commemorate the expansion coming out for them, or the campaign rather. So we got the Hectate, we got the Hellfire, we got the Emasculator, which this one is a bit weird because it's kind of like a Slaughter just with slower speed. And just the reason why I say that is because these merged macro weaponry is basically a lance turret, a broadside lance turret anyway, and a handful of macro batteries is really all that's different there. Hell, these lances even have the same kind of range as what the Slaughter has, with the exception of a little more reach with the macro cans. So first impressions, I don't know what to think of these ships, because we got a Hectate, which is just a battlecruiser variant of a Devastation at almost 50 more points to cost. Going to be a hard sell, I want to argue, for just an additional lance turret. It looks like they're more powerful turrets they have as well here. So there's a lot of nuances, I'm just pointing out what's available there. And time will tell if there's any practicality to these ships, because hell, the Grand Cruisers and the Spoiler got increased in speed, but ironically, they did not boost their brand new Grand Cruiser, which is still at 150 speed in this one. It's just another hybrid of Lance and macro cannons essentially. At least this is what it's looking like. And then other than that, that's the main gist of what we have there for Chaos. I was thinking of playing around with a carrier heavy type of fleet, but the only one that really qualifies for that is probably the Protector fleet or the Merchant fleet, oddly enough. And with the railgun boost that they got, I think Tau is going to be very popular potentially for this next season, since it is arguably just retracting at least the Merchant fleet nerf that they got with their cruisers, and the Protectors getting a tiny nerf to their cost, but still functioning a little bit better with the additional damage on the railguns. So expect maybe a lot of the 6 cruiser fleets to make a resurgence. And otherwise for Tyranids, their accuracy for the pyro assets, since all the other weaponry doesn't really care about accuracy, they nerfed the pyro assets to basically have it similar to what the orcs have. So if you're able to keep at range, this will help a little bit here, at least keeping your shields alive longer and not getting critical hits. And hell, with I'm pretty certain I hint at, Lock On has had its critical hit chance cut in half essentially. Everything else is the same, but you can avoid the fire assaults a little bit better, and this is important for the Corsairs since they got a bit of a, it depends on how you view it, they got a buff as well, since this also is cut in half the critical hit chance for the general lock-on stance, but I honestly can't remember if that's true for the Spear Crystal lenses or the Runic Focus. Yeah, interestingly enough, they still got 100% critical hit chance. Maybe an oversight, but Pulsars are going to be wrecking things, while everything else is going to have to rely a little more on luck if they want to kill those generators off quickly. But I hinted at Corsairs because their their Fragile trait also got the same kind of treatment there. Cut the critical hit chance in half, which if you've seen my Corsair matches, the fact that, well, I'm more referring to the Chaos match I had there where my generators multiple times got destroyed instantly. And I don't need to tell you what kind of death sentence that was for me. But as a trade-off, you take more damage from ramming, which is something that was missing, oddly enough, from Armada 1's Corsairs. Although, to be fair, that was a little bit different since they did less damage rather. Less damning probably would be the same word, I suppose. Less damage to doing rams as opposed to taking more ramming damage. So it's still a little bit different, but similar enough to Armada 1, I would argue, in that you do not want to ram ever, I think is the moral of the story there. And then Asgiani got a little bit of tweaks just in the Phoenixes and a couple of the carrier ships. Very minor. But with Season 3 now here, expect me to try and play around with at least a 5 cruiser fleet maybe initially, but I would love to incorporate a Phoenix. I just absolutely love this ship. It's still not enough for adding 4 cruisers to it, it goes without saying, which may be a little bit ridiculous. So we'll have to play around with the possibility of maybe finally having a light cruiser in here. Because sadly I do not want to touch these things. And yes, I'm talking a little bit longer than usual, going over all the patch notes as opposed to diving right in. But hey, this is only a one-time thing, and then we could try to put all this into practice. I still aim to give you a couple of matches. Don't you worry about that, but otherwise, only other thing to note, well, Orcs got their nerf in damage potential slightly, and everything was increased in point cost too. I don't even think we need to look at that too much. But needless to say, yeah, gonna just have to cut out a single frigate. That's not a big deal at all, but what does matter is the longer they nerfed the reload time slightly. That's the kind of important thing there, I suppose, if you're worried about mega cannons, but... And also, yeah, I am getting a little bit scatterbrained because I'm trying to also remember everything that's being implemented, but there are a few upgrade changes I mentioned as well. Very slight ones, like Seeker turrets, now affect all battleships, which might actually be something I experiment with, since I was contemplating trying out the carrier heavy fleet, but I think I might do with the battleships here to kind of justify that, since the Seeker turrets are kind of handy if I expect a close range battle, and I have a couple of battleships to complement this And the Vanguard Void battleship is basically, what is it? One of the upgrades that was initially already in Armada 1, where the Manta Bombers also do boarding assault actions. And now with them being able to just fly back and recharge, this could have good boarding potential for lower crew capacity fleets. At least for crippling them, and at least getting a third of their crew killed off. There might be merit there. And then only one odd thing to note, I believe, is, aside for the usual, like, reducing point costs, especially with some of these ships here, the Oberon and Emperor now have a scanner pulse ability. It's still 13,000 units, so you're not going to have like a map-wide kind of scanner, which would be a little bit ridiculous if they boost the range on this thing for something so big. I wonder how that actually would play out, but it's there nonetheless, allowing you to not rely so much on your frigates possibly, especially when facing off against Corsairs or Drukhari, which have to get within scanner range if they're actually going to shoot at you. So I wonder how that would play out if I were to be serious. But otherwise, there are a lot of other minor nuances, like, what is it? Adeptus Mechanicus getting one additional crew for all their ships, essentially, making them a little more resilient at boarding. And it will all come to me in time. I don't think there was anything note to Drukhari, but the one thing I'm a little bit disappointed in, which may get fixed in a hot patch, Disruption Overcharge still pauses the shield regeneration. So, in like cases where factions that have Disruption Overcharge, like the Adeptus Mechanicus, as opposed to Chaos and Imperial Navy, which do not have this, they are going to suffer heavily in those type of matchups, at least in the drawn-out type of fights, especially with Chaos, I want to argue, since their shields will always be down, and Adeptus Mechanicus can freely kind of recharge theirs, so I really do hope that was just an oversight maybe, or it will be fixed in a hot patch, because again, the wording is not even here, so I want to believe it's not there, or not intended rather, since again, Imperial Navy and Chaos, as well as a couple of these other factions, don't get that kind of benefits. But I talked on long enough. I think what I'm going to do is just go with a heavy type of fighter fleet, a little bit of secret missiles with the merchant fleet at least, and just experiment with a couple of these changes. And hell, I really do want to experiment with the protector fleet since they got the railguns enhanced, but I can also experiment with that with merchant fleet. I think this is kind of what this video is relegated to, unless I can find something I'm comfortable with for a fighter heavy type of fleet for Chaos maybe, since they're only ones I can think of. Well, Imperial Navy, maybe I can get away with that some, with the Exorcists. I'm gonna have to look into it. Okay, so we're jumping into a Space Marine matchup here, and I will explain a little bit what my fleet is, although it might not be the most optimal fleet since we're trying to utilize the carriers to an extent. So I'm not expecting miracles if I were to be honest, especially with the heavy boarding potential that Space Marines can have here. But what I have is 3 battleships. One is the Seeker Missile type variant, since my points will only allow for that, since I was a little bit short to get a third of just a regular carrier type of explorer. So that's what's going on here. Then I have a crap ton of these orcas, good god. I really need to put some use into them. But on the plus side, I could use them to kind of just transfer troops over to me. That's not a ridiculous idea. As silly as it may sound, I have like sacrificial troops that I could just throw at them. But firepower is not exactly the most prominent, and I gotta beware of my broadside type of seeker missiles too. And also, I did fail to notice or mention that the experimental manifolds were nerfed a tiny bit, but that's mainly because they boosted the space speed of all these ships to kind of balance that out. So it's not as essential, I want to argue, but I think I still go with it anyway, because the extra turning speed could be useful for ramming. Again, this is not going to be pretty, I'm willing to admit this right now, so don't expect miracles with me just randomly trying to get a fleet to maybe do some damage. We're going to try and have some fun with these changes though, ideally. And I'm going to die to boring damage, let's not kid ourselves. And I'm doing a bad job paying attention to the objective too, so everything but one orca over here. And let's fix this now. There. Okay, I'm done talking. Let's get this going. Stasis bomb to help keep them at arm's length. Oh, double battle barge type of fleet. Okay. So this will be a little bit different. Now. That was, of course, the 2-squadron fleet, so I was kind of hoping that to be a 4-squadron fleet, if I were to be honest, so... But the speed of everything was increased, so now it's... Well, actually, we can have a look at the stats quickly. 550 for the Barracudas, which it would be 650 for all the other generic type of fighters. And Manta Bombers, which do now 120 damage worth. We'll see how this goes. This is going to be a ridiculous amount of boring damage, it goes without saying, but hey. Well, I am intrigued to see what possibility there is here. Again, I have a lot of frigates to kind of use to siphon troops off of, so it's may not be the worst situation for me. It just feels like it could go badly. Just due to the pad, or was it my poor troop resilience that I have for this fleet. Especially since I'm also using the weak... Yeah, I'm using the cruisers that have lower troop complement as well. The other one, that was a little more expensive, had like maybe 14 troops as opposed to 9 per phase. So I could regret this some. Oh, interestingly enough, it's the Lance fleet. I honestly don't recall if there was a buff to Lances. I know there was buffs to Chaos Lances, and as a result the Tau weaponry gained buffs, so did their Lances, but I don't think anything else got boosted too much. And then we'll just recall and see if this sticks, it does any damage or not. The damage is kind of ridiculous there, but again, those... Alright. So I'm gonna have to get this out, alas. It's kind of looking like, but... Can I get an experimental railgun hit in? Because this is a promising start, but... I'm a little bit thankful. This may not be as serious a match as it could be. I just gotta figure out which one's actually got the experimental railgun. Okay, for a moment I was worried that wouldn't hit. And again, as soon as I get boarded, I'm kind of in good... Actually, just stay there, damn it. I thought I told you to burn retros. Now I gotta wait for these to recall. And... Alright. Let's try kill this thing off some, because I have seeker missiles. And I have the health to kind of take these hits some. Now, let's actually hit this. Kill this. Try to anyway. And just regenerate my crew best I can. And I gotta remember my dang, oh, do they actually fight on the prow now? And maybe I changed that ahead of time. Okay, and since I don't have Disruption Overcharge, this will hurt a little bit there. But a lot of the boring damage has been negated at least. Now, otherwise your crew is heavily damaged. I didn't really notice that the best, but... I do have fighters out still. Which, thankfully, did catch... Actually, do I have the point defense? Yes, I actually do have the point defense here, so that's part of what's going on here, too. And you have 2 fighter squadrons. I think? No, you had the 4 fighter squadrons, okay. So that wasn't too terrible. Now I just gotta actually get a good hit with these seeker missiles, which is gonna be tricky to do. Now, let's get to grabbing objectives, I suppose. Let's see about finishing this off, because you're getting bored to death again. And I have experimental railgun to just get through this haul. And its fighters are dealing with the point defense. I just need an opportunity to actually fire with these seeker missiles. I'm terrified to do that. Thankfully, it pays off there, if only slightly. But let's grab the objectives. Ooh, and new music I'm just realizing too. So that technically was a victory, but hey. I like to think the bombers had a lot of damage potential, but in all honesty, I think it goes without saying the railguns, or was it? Going with this traditional 6 cruiser fleet's probably far more vicious and far more dangerous if I were to go that route instead. But I'm happy to see the new music alas. Now, get to grabbing the objective at least, please. I am looking forward to listening to this after I'm done recording. See how much variety they have in that regard. And wasn't doing a good job paying attention to these, but hey. That frigate's almost gone. You do have bombers, but we'll see if they can do the damage or not. And just grab the objectives, we'll finish this off. I kind of do want to try this against a serious fleet, but like I hinted at, with the buffs Tau had, it probably is more in my favor, more than likely to happen. I'm just not doing it in the most optimal route if I went with the 6 cruiser fleet itself, but hell, just a few bomber squadrons that I launched itself did notable damage to even a battle barge, good god. So you have to take those seriously now in this case. But I'm having a hard time figuring out what's the second fleet I'm gonna play as though, if I were to be perfectly honest. Since again, I would like to try experimenting with the fighters with Chaos, but they don't have very many variety for heavy fighters. Well, hold that thought. They don't have many options for at least a carrier heavy type of fleet since the Stigs were nerfed, so... Well, it's really only the Stigs. I don't think I can get very good amount of bombers and fighters with the Desolator, at least in comparison. Never mind their slower mobility. Now it's just being dragged out, is what it's coming down to, essentially. I can still grab these battleships. Like, this is the one benefit of having all these battleships with this tweak. Now, bombers should get destroyed there, but actually, this would be amazing if I could hit with experimental railgun. Unlikely. Well, I hit the target, just not the target I want.
Ready for orders. Honor the teachings of Viola.
Yeah, well, I do have the point lead. This is, I suppose, just for fun, maybe. I like to think so anyway, but that's not what you're kind of here to see, I imagine, too. Since I kind of was expecting the bombardment cannons and the torpedoes, because hey, my fleet's not exactly resilient at dealing with boarding damage, but hey, now I have a use for those frigates, I think. If I were to use them to siphon off troops to help negate their weak, or how vulnerable they are to boarding. It does require all my frigates to be standing there, I suppose, but I wasn't really paying attention how useful these seeker turrets were. It might be useful with the, at least in Space Marine's case, since they do want to get in close range, and the more of them there are, I think this just gets more powerful, since I don't think it diminishes on the number of targets near me. Especially with me fielding 3 battleships, and I think it's possible for me to fit a 4th one. It's definitely possible if I really want to go that route. Again, probably not the most optimal fleet, since I would argue the 6 cruisers might be better. I'm going to argue at least there, but hey, it's a little bit of fun. I actually enjoy at least the 4 charges that the battleships provide, at least with the Seeker missile fleet, since I genuinely have been experimenting with the 4 explorers that had the 8 Seeker missiles on them a little bit in my streams, and it seems to work decently. It's just, again, not very optimal. Okay, we're playing against Necron here, and to be honest, I think I've found something that might be useful for at least to accommodate the theme of what the main change of the patch is supposed to encourage, and that's 3 despoilers, I suppose. I think I might regret this, but the reason I ultimately swapped out the stags for these 3 despoilers is simply put the firepower these things have. I have terrible mobility, so I'm gonna have to really think on how to take advantage of this, or at least how to make this work. And of course, when I'm facing off against possibly double tomb ships, that's going to be tricky to do, since my fighters can easily get shot down. But hey, they have really limited type of point defense as well, so I almost can to an extent. Wait a minute. Wow, did they really buff the bomber speed to 650? I don't recall seeing this in the patch notes. I thought it was just increased by 50, but this changes a lot. This changes this dynamic quite a bit if that's true. Because that's one of the reasons why the bombers were a little bit difficult to utilize. Not so much that they had a really hard time chasing their opponent, but since especially you kind of seen it if you watch my Eldari type of play that tried to make use of bombers. The rate phone shift and the erratic turning made it insanely difficult to just be able to I'm trying to think of what I'm going to do here. I don't have the slightest clue, so I'm just going to continue on with the thought process. But it takes an eternity for the bombers to board you, especially in my case where I'm going to be trying to keep them at arm's length. And damn it, I did not want stasis bomb now that I think of it. So a bit of mistake there, to say the least. But hey, if we can somehow get a victory out of this, that'd be great. But I am really interested to see how this plays out. With do they actually have the increased speed? There's an easy way to find out, I guess, and that's just launching fighters behind these bombers. It looks like they actually do have the speed there, so I just gotta remember which one has the bombers I want to recall. Since these are like, oh, that's the fighters. You say, why are you both saying, oh, you're the bombers there, so I'm likely gonna have to recall you. Actually, yeah, that may have been a terrible mistake anyway, since they're not spread out enough, to be honest. I did not account for this the best. But my fighters are going to get in there pretty decently, but I should stagger them a lot more if I were to be serious. And since with only a new frigate at that, which I never pointed out, that's going to be decent. Do I recall? I recalled everything prematurely there, but I think that with them having double star pulse generator, that's going to be a bit problematic. But hey, they made a tweak to Necrons that their star pulse generator is now tied to the deck. So I actually have something to prioritize a little bit. In all honesty, I probably should be boring them if I were to be serious. I just don't know if it would be enough troop damage, but since there's only really 2 ships for me to worry about, that helps a little bit in that regard. But my bombers did get recalled, so there's always that. And this is why I need to always be launching a damn fighter squadron, it goes without saying. Since I don't think they quite have the firepower to survive this onslaught.
We stand ready.
Now I'm trying to figure out which one's these actual fighters. Or the bombers, because my bombers are without a doubt getting annihilated, since I did a bad job trying to prioritize these ships.
We are unstoppable.
No, that was a bad mistake, because it goes without saying. Let's see, there's the second right there. And that, I think they have these regenerated by now, their star pulse, so. But I am concealed, surprisingly, so the scanner pulse did not do as much as it could have, maybe. And I don't have armor piercing to really do this the best of justice either. And there's a frame hit there in that regard, but try and stagger these. Maximize my damage on these bombers. Especially with... Is this a second? Yeah, it is, so expect more star pulses, is the moral of this story here.
Your orders.
And also, if I can destroy the deck, that would help a lot. Because again, the light cruiser at least can lose its star pulse generator. Although again, a bit of an issue here, but second I can avoid. That deck's gone, so that again has no star pulse generator, but they buffed their recharge to make that a 30-second timer for damaged components, at least lightly damaged components.
The enemy is seizing one of your strategic areas.
So let's just get out and see about bombing this, although I need bombers now, because they're likely
Fires unleashed.
gonna get caught in there.
Moving to those coordinates.
Up, combustion gauge is all spent. And actually I should be boarding as well. Prepping for the boarding damage, since I've been fixated a lot on the actual damage of potential of the bomber, since that was buffed, and ignoring all the other potentials. Now, interesting. Arc Propagator was also buffed. That was not in the patch notes as well. That now works with all their ships. So that's going to be a little annoying, needless to say. Because I was completely caught flat-footed there in that regard.
Doom fires unleashed.
Well, let's see. We could take these hits a little bit. And your deck's completely gone, so that's kind of useless until they decide to use their... Until they... What is it? The flagship uses his regeneration component.
Stop them out. Your orders.
And I was kind of hoping that would conceal you. You're too far away, alas.
We'll follow your command. For now. Show us
But
our victory.
this is not quite over yet. I'm just going to have a terrible time hitting their deck. It goes without saying.
Set engines to full ahead. Your orders.
Not exactly exciting match there, but there's a lot to be learned apparently with, like I said.
Fires unleashed.
The Second, or at least the upgrade to the lances, at least allows for maybe a heavy lance type of fleet strategy. And I'm concealed right now.
Setting course.
I'm doing a terrible job focusing on the objective, alas, but
Strategic areas.
there's the Second heavily murdered.
We stand ready.
And I was kind of hoping you were actually get turned around by now, but I think the close proximity kind of ruined that some,
We are
if I were to be honest. So
retros activated.
yeah, tomb ships are just hiding there now. So we're gonna have that kind of game, I guess.
We stand
And if I could somehow kill this off, that'd be nice. But well, it's about to break too with no deck.
We've lost the ship.
So can we at least kill off the flagship? It's kind of the least relevant type of ship, though, to be honest. But maybe it'll just die right now.
Retros activated.
Huh, and interestingly enough, the Star Pulse didn't really do anything there. I wonder why.
Strategic area.
Swift death
But
squadron.
now my firepower is
The
greatly
enemy
limited,
has seized a strategic area.
which I don't think was my best control maneuver, but hey.
Command. For now.
We're facing off against something serious here, at least, so
Moving to those
that's a bit of benefit in that regard. But I gotta somehow kill off their deck. A Star Pulse generator is gonna... Well, I can easily shoot these. Who am I kidding? I just gotta make sure damage sticks.
Ship sighted. Setting course.
And with my concealment currently, I can at least get some shots on them.
Master wills.
The enemy
Now I
has
just gotta get
seized a
objectives,
strategic
I
area.
suppose, and force myself to kind of do something about this.
Enemy ship sighted.
Oh, you... That was the wrong target to go after, alas, but hey. Let's see.
Strike successful, Master.
I can at least deal with the morale damage for now, but I kind of wish I had boarded the proper ship.
It's rampage through their ship.
Because your deck's temporarily damaged, at least.
To the slaughter.
Which only gives me 30 seconds to maybe do something here. And yeah, I have to recall my fighters. For some reason I thought they were killed off at this point, since I had nothing to really target them to get them closer. So that's something that's also doing terribly in this regard. Yeah, I fixate a little bit too much on the dang boarding, or the damage of the bombers, when the boarding damage could have been really good in this regard.
We'll follow your command.
But yeah, there's a strategy now, at least for seeker missile type of heavy type of fleets, or seeker missiles, torpedoes, and just bombers in general.
Ship lost. Ship lost.
Just maybe destroy the deck to kind of negate that to an extent. This is just, again, I never really had much going luck with bomber builds, and at least bomber heavy type of fleets, at least for Chaos. It seemed to be decent for Tau, but of course, they have seeker missiles to easily complement that. So maybe I can give this one more try and actually give us a proper match, is what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, I guess we get ourselves a sort of rematch here. Let me just not screw it up this time. Since, if anything, I should have had a plasma bomb to help accelerate the rate of doing damage, and just complement the bombers more, and of course, do my goddamn boarding. I fixated a little bit too much on the bombers, since they were what was buffed after all, and with the 600 speed to bombers now, and what we learned with the arc propagator, the upgrade that Fossil was utilizing, that change at least opens up some possibilities, since I believe, I could be entirely wrong, that was just the flagship only. I'm pretty certain that's the case, and apparently I have a weapon that doesn't exist. I can't tell you any. I don't know what's going on there. Oh, it's just the other. No, it's not the other fighter base. Oh, it's the turrets. Okay. I'll try and play a serious game, I guess, if that's what Fossil wants to do with their 2 tomb ships. It's easy enough to deal with the light cruiser. Hell, with the change to the Star Pulse Generator, I almost should prioritize it first to at least deny them 1 Star Pulse Generator immediately. And I want armor piercing. Let's play the serious. Accuracy to help hit them at range. And extra critical hit to boarding might not be terrible either. But we'll stick with this. And winds of change will be useful. I just don't have the mission dissipators, so one downside in this regard.
Swift Death Squadron.
And
Seeking prey.
they do have the... well, they don't have any gas clouds near them.
Doomfires
So let's just stagger these, and I gotta remember I do have 4 charges, let alone 4 assault boats, so this may not be terrible.
Dead claws away.
And I'm actually gonna stagger what I launched too, to try and start chipping them down the troops as well for the 1 ship.
Doomfires unleashed.
I hope I spread these out enough though.
Strategic area. The
But
enemy
this
has
is a nice
seized
quality of life
strategic
change for the
area.
bombers at least. Their faster speed makes it a lot more easier to actually dock with the ship that they launched them. As I kind of hinted at already with when I was playing as Agiani Eldari at least, when I tried with the carrier type of heavy fleets. And there's the second right there.
We are
I could
unstoppable.
boost and all that. I might as well, since that's kind of the game we're going to be playing, isn't it?
For the ruinous
Since the frigate might just grab that point over there, we'll see. And my fighters... oh,
enemy ship sighted.
what happened to my fighters? Good lord. That is like terrible. That the fighters conveniently got intercepted there. Or the fighters did not intercept is what I'm trying to say. That's a terrible start. Kind of odd that it went that way.
Command for now.
Since you imagine those fighters would have just easily knocked them down, but hey. I guess I could have just launched them part way. That would help a ton in that regard.
Swift Death Squadron.
But still, not the result I was expecting in all seriousness.
Moving to those coordinates.
And I do have armor piercing for the better close range damage at least.
Doomfires unleashed.
Now, I'm hoping my fighters don't do a terrible job. Well, there is the asteroid belt.
Your orders. Engines hot.
So can I hit that? Nope, not quite.
Show us our victory.
And you have to get in range. Actually, let's prioritize the deck too on these things. Since we're going to play that kind of game, and that helps a ton. Especially if you don't have the upgrade to keep...
Reporting.
Alright, you do have the upgrade to keep your stances. That's fine.
Engines hot.
You have seized a strategic area.
Now, I do have the armor piercing to effectively do some damage here.
Doomfires
Just gotta
unleashed.
remember, they have 3 star pulse generators. And you're getting through my shield, so this will be short-lived after a brief
Doomfires
time.
unleashed.
Because I want to prioritize you, but now that you're hit, then it's not possible. And damn it, apparently my bombers, despite my staggering, did a terrible job in this regard of launching in separate squadrons. And I don't even know which one...
Enemy ship sighted.
Yeah, I don't know which bomber's which, it's a bit of the problem.
We stand ready.
I thought I staggered him, apparently it was not good enough.
For the War Master.
Oh well, let me at least kill off the deck on this one.
Reporting.
Ideally.
As the War Master wills.
Actually, I didn't launch any bombers, so...
Powers.
But they likely have fighters to complement this. So let's just go for the full damage salvo, especially with such an aggressive
For the
jump.
War Master.
And then I'll worry about
Follow your command.
the boring damage on the other one momentarily.
Show us our
Because
victory.
bombers did their damage now.
Enemy
And we are in armor-piercing range, so... And mass recall was just expended.
setting course.
Now, I gotta remember that they still have... Actually, I was gonna board that there, but the cruiser's still not in the way.
Sword strike successful, Master.
And they just jumped... Well, they still have the jumping with... They still have their inertial drive with everything.
Or else.
Oh, and your flagships apparently also...
Doomfires
The-
unleashed.
The tomb ship. So that's something I didn't really notice there.
Those coordinates.
I don't quite got the best arc anymore for my armor piercing, but
For the ruinous power.
this thing's lost its deck, so there goes the Star Pulse generator.
Retros activated.
Which could be a death sentence to a lot of Necron type of fleets.
Orders.
Again, they are battleships, so it's incredibly difficult to actually get those critical hits, though. Now, can we get the killing blow is a bit of the problem. Since my turning speed is horrible, it goes without saying, oh, I only really have the cruiser to help in this regard.
For the War Master.
Actually,
Dead claws
let's start boarding with you and see about killing this off.
As the War Master wills.
Since I don't have Disruption Overcharge to pause the regeneration at all.
Doomfires unleashed. We'll follow your command.
And the second's about to die as well. I don't have Rally. Oh yeah, that's because it's the one that's mutinying right now.
Victims. We are unstoppable.
Actually, and I have a plasma bomb, but it's likely gonna... Well, yeah, its engine's still up. Who am I kidding? But 2 decks are gone.
Set engines to full ahead.
I kind of want to kill the second, I'm not gonna lie.
Reporting.
But with 2 of their decks gone, that heavily limits their potential.
Activated.
Because now this is... Well, I was gonna say this is where my cruiser shines, but it's now hitting my other ships.
For the War Master.
Hitboxes seem a little bit off, just a tiny bit.
As the War Master wills.
Now, not quite a kill just yet, sadly.
Slaughter. Your orders.
And your engines are now conveniently gone just because of all the effort I had to put into it, huh?
Show us our victims.
So we're just a little bit close on everything.
25% of strategic points. You have accumulated 25% of strategic points.
Retros activated.
Can I finish these off?
Doomfires
Because that has enough boring damage to just straight up die at this point.
moving to those coordinates.
Sadly, the ones... Well, they had fighters in the way too, so no, this is over.
Course.
The enemy has accumulated accumulated 50% of strategic
Still a
points.
terrible display on my part.
Ship lost! Ship lost!
Since, yeah, actually with the regeneration, that's still gonna get his crew regenerated. Okay, is this enough to kill
Brace!
the second though?
You have accumulated 50% of strategic points.
And I don't, yeah, this is just gonna burn death now. And I don't have enough,
Attack successful, Master!
I'm not gonna do enough boring damage here to kind of,
Engines hot!
well, this could still be an awkward exchange.
Tear them apart!
But the fire assaulter was killing my crew, and yeah, no, another lightning strike will murder me right now.
Our minions
That's game.
rampage through their ship!
So still really awkward with the bombers, especially with the Chaos type of fleet, but in all honesty, I couldn't think of much else outside of maybe Eldari, which interestingly enough, they only have 2 fighter squadrons to them and a bunch of other weaponry to help complement it. And that would, I'd argue, is probably one of the worst type of fleets, at least just due to mobility's sake. I can't turn around for the life of me, especially against something that has an inertialess drive to immediately reposition itself. So yeah, still a terrible display. I'm not doing the carrier fleet justice, I suppose.